The bit of work I have for you to do today is not really about new blocks of code or new ideas. It's more about taking things that you know and applying them and making something happen. And in this first part, I want to show you, in this little video, I want to show you what it is that you're trying to make happen. And we are working our way up toward you designing your own game. So I'm putting you in a kind of a game design situation here today, and I don't think this one's super hard. Anyway, I sent you this link to this program, and you will have to click the link, and you'll have to view code, and you'll have to remix, and probably ought to rename. But when you run the code, it's not complicated. I created a little maze in the game area, and I don't know if I did it the best way, but there are 10 different walls that make the maze. There's a little player on the left-hand side, and there's a prize at the end of the little maze. And the maze is not complicated. The point is not to have a complicated maze. The controls for the player are already set up. It's keyboard control. Right arrow, left arrow, up arrow, down arrow. All right, so that's already set. But right now, with the program as it is, as you received it, the player can just go right past the walls. If you'll look right there, you'll see what I'm talking about. There is no relationship, there's no collision relationship at all between the player and the walls. And so here's what we want to do. We want to set up a situation where the player is actually forced to go through the walls, or I'm sorry, to go through the maze to get to the prize. All right, so that's what we're going to work on here in this exercise today. Now, a couple of things that I just want to point out here. If you look at my code, and again, I don't know if I did this the best way, but I did it. It works. There are 10 different walls, and if you look at the top of the code, you'll see they're just wall 1, wall 2, wall 3, wall 4. And so it goes all the way up to wall 10. And they're all positioned so that they make this little maze. And then down, once you get past all the walls, there's an item, a sprite called prize. So that's important. And there's also a sprite called player. That's a little game piece looking thing over here that you control with your arrow keys. All right, so those are I'm just showing you labels. It's wall 1, wall 2, wall 3. There's player, there's prize. So here's your task. Here inside the draw loop, you're going to have to set up, you're going to use one of those 4 kinds of collisions that we did last week, like bounce, bounce off, collide, displace. You're going to have to use one of those 4 so that as you move the game player, the game piece, the player, whatever you want to call him, as you're moving through, if he bumps into a wall, he can't go through the wall. And he can't move the wall. He just runs into the wall and then he stops. And that's the relationship we want. Now there's another thing that I'm requiring on this little exercise that you're doing today. I also want that once your player has made it through the maze, which is not complicated, and gets over to the prize, the little gold nugget, I want you to program in a if player is touching situation. And what I want you to do is show something that says you did it, you won, make something happen that indicates that the player of the game was successful. So there's really 2 parts to what you're working on today. You have to set it up so that when the player runs into a wall, the wall stops him, right? He can't go through the wall, he doesn't move the wall, and there are 10 different walls. Keep that in mind. And then also, the other thing you have to do here today is set up a situation where if the player gets to the prize, then there's an indication on the screen. Use some text, change the background, communicate that you did it, you won. All right? Now, here is a quick peek at one that is, if I run this one's already done. So again, if I'm using my arrow keys here and I'm moving the player, and if I come over to this wall and I hit this wall, I'm trying to hit the right arrow and I can't go through it. And that's because I programmed it that way. That's what I want you to do. I want you to think through those collision blocks that we talked about on Thursday and Friday of last week and set it up that way. So if I go up like this, I'm going up, 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 and I hit that wall up there, it stops me. The wall stops me. If I go over to the left, the wall stops me. If I go over here to the right, the wall stops me. I'm hitting my arrow key, and I can't go through the wall. And that's done with, you know, those collision blocks that we talked about. One of them, I'm not going to tell you which one, but I don't think it's hard. All right, and then when I come down here, again, if I'm going down, I hit this wall, the wall stops me. I can't get past it. And then if I finally do go over here and I touch this, here's what I did to mine. Now, the event that you have happen when the player touches the prize might not look just like mine, but that's a requirement today. You have to program in something that will indicate, like what you see here, right? When the player touches the prize, you got to have an indication that, hey, you did it, you win, success, whatever. All right. So that's kind of your job today. That's it. You're going to work on taking this program that I wrote. You're going to have to set up a certain kind of collision relationship between the player and all of the walls. Remember that there are 10 of them. And you're also going to have to set up a situation where if the player touches the prize, then something happens. All right, time for you to get to it.